These are truly essential knitting skills for knitting a sweater. Hi friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Hobby Libby. My name is Libby. Very nice to meet you here in this little corner of my hobby world. Knitting is one of my many hobbies and I approach knitting with a modern touch. So today is the video part 2 of the 11 essential knitting techniques for beginners to knit a sweater or any project. In my last video, I showed you guys the 7 essential knitting stitches for beginners, and I mentioned that I will introduce the 4 remaining knitting techniques in this video. But I have a change of mind because after I was done editing the step-by-step tutorial of the 2 shaping techniques, which are shaping curves for armholes and necklines and shaping slopes for the shoulder seams, I realized I underestimated the amount of information that needed to be addressed for these 2 techniques in an easy to follow and understand way. So a change of plan. I'm gonna dedicate this video to the 2 shaping techniques only, and I'm gonna dedicate the next video to the 2 finishing techniques, which will be how to stitch all the pieces together when you're done knitting and how to pick up stitches around your neckline to finish knitting your neckband or button band. So I think this is gonna be a much better way for you guys to learn, because learning a hobby should be relaxed and fun instead of stressed or overwhelmed. Sounds good? Okay. So when it comes to learning, I'm a big advocate of not only learning the how, but also the why. Once you understand the reason of doing something, you would have mastered the skill truly and would be able to apply the skill in different scenarios. And in knitting, that means free creations and knitting without patterns. Sounds exciting, right? So let's go to the why before we dive into the how. Here are some fashion prototypes that fashion professionals use, and don't be overwhelmed by the whole situation here. I'm not gonna go deep into this. I'm just gonna show you some basics. Oh, by the way, well, knitting is my hobby, but fashion design and sewing is my domain of expertise. I do have plans to film fashion design and DIY and sewing videos on this channel, and I have a great lineup of exciting projects to share with you guys. So if you are interested in that, please subscribe so you know where to find me next time. So back to the knitting. Fashion patterns are nothing mysterious or complicated. It's a simple application of geometry. Basically, it's a bunch of lines and curves and angles and slopes coming together. For example, this is the front prototype for women's top. So here is half like this, and you can see that this is the center and this is the side seam. It's straight lines, and this is the waistline here, horizontal straight lines and curves. This is armhole and curves. This is the neckline, and slopes. This is the shoulder seam. The back prototype is the same. Back type prototype is almost the same as the front prototype with slight differences. So same here, this is the center back, this is the side seam, waistline, all straight lines, and this is armhole, back armhole, curves, back neckline, curves, and slope shoulder seams. And this is the sleeve prototype. This is right here, only part of the cap area. You can also see its curves. So sleeve pattern is probably the most difficult part, not even for beginners. And when I was a student in fashion school, that is also the most difficult part to understand. But currently, you only need to know the caps or curves. And I'm gonna, probably in the future, I'm gonna dedicate one video to explain how the sleeve cap works, but for now, you only need to know their curves. as simple as that. So in knitting, you need to learn how to shape curves so you can knit your armholes, your necklines, and also you need to learn how to shape the slopes so you can knit your shoulder seams correctly. These are truly essential skills for your sweater to make sure your sweater is constructed correctly and fit right. Sounds good? Okay, now we've learned our why, and without further ado, let's dive into the step-by-step tutorial of the two shaping techniques. Okay, let's take a look of the demonstrating swatch that I showed in my last video tutorial. In the last tutorial, we covered 7 essential knitting stitches for complete beginners to start any knitting project, and they are marked in green here. So let's recap. Number 1 and number 2 is knit and purl. Number 3 is cast on. Number 4 is 1 by 1 rib. Number 5 is binding off. Number 6 is increasing stitches. And number 7 is, number 6 is increasing, right? And number 7 is decreasing stitches. And today we're gonna learn 8, 9, and 10. So number 8 is gonna be how to shape the armhole, the curve. And number 9 is gonna be how to shape the shoulder seam, which is a slope. And number 10 is how to shape the neckline, which is the same technique as number 8. Okay, now first let's learn how to shape the armholes, and that's number 8. So, as I introduced in the beginning of the video, armholes are curved lines, which can be achieved by a combination of binding off stitches and reducing stitches. In my last video, how to master 7 essential knitting stitches for beginners, I had a step-by-step tutorial for the both stitches. So if you just discovered this video tutorial, you can go to watch that tutorial and come back to learn how to shape the curves. What I'm doing here is I am demonstrating how to knit the front piece of a sweater, which will have 2 armholes, the left armhole and the right armhole. Now I'm starting to shape the right armhole. To shape the right armhole, first I'm gonna using the binding off stitch to bind off. To be exactly, I'm gonna bind off 3 stitches here. So it depends on the structure of your sweater as to how many stitches to bind off. Usually this is where the knitting patterns that you bought will tell you how many stitches to bind off. So the more fitted the sweater is, more stitches needed to be bind off, and the more oversized and the less. So here for demonstrating, I'm just binding off 3 stitches. Okay, after binding off 3 stitches, I'll keep knitting to finish this row. Okay, now I finished knitting this row. I'm gonna turn the swatch to the other side and start binding off the left armhole. Remember, you can only bind off from the beginning of the knitting the row, so we cannot binding off on this side, but that is okay. We need to turn to the other side to bind off, and here you will bind off from the purl side. Binding off from the purl side is the same as binding off from the knitting side. You just need to get the yarn out of the way when you're binding off, like here. So you put your yarn away and bind off. Because if you bind off like this, you can't, the yarn is gonna on your way. Hope that's clear. So same here, we're gonna bind off 3 stitches. Now we've bound off 3 stitches on this side. We're gonna keep purling to finish the row as what we did earlier. So just to finish this row, and we'll start a new row. Now we finished purling the row, and we are turning the swatch on the knit side again. And on this new row, we will start reducing stitches. So we will reduce 1 stitch on each side. So for this knit side, for this side, we're gonna reduce 1 stitch for the right armhole, and later we'll reduce 1 stitch for the left armhole. But now let's see. So first, like slipping off the first stitch, we don't knit. That's a common practice. So we needed 2 stitches, and we're gonna knit here the 3 and 4 stitches together. The reducing stitch method we learned in my last video tutorial. So yeah, so that means 1 stitch has been reduced on this row. So, and we're gonna keep knitting until we finish this row. And okay, now we finish this row. Again, we're turning the swatch to the other side, and we're working on the left armhole. And the same thing, this time we're gonna purl, and we slip the first stitch, which is a common practice again. So we purl 1, and we're gonna purl the 3rd and 4th stitches together. So reducing stitches technique, the basic one. Knit them together to reduce 1 stitch. That means on both sides we've reduced 1 stitch on both sides. And yeah, just to keep purling until we finish this row. Okay, now we finished purling the row, and you can see that a curve has been formed already. It's a combination of binding off stitch and reducing stitches. You can clearly see the curved lines, and for demonstrating purpose, I'm not gonna reduce more stitches for this swatch, because as long as how many stitches to bind off and how many stitches to reduce, it depends on the sweater, the fit of the sweater. Also, if you are following patterns, they will tell you. And but in a nutshell, it's just the curved lines are achieved by a combination of binding off stitches and reducing stitches. Basically, the more fitted the sweater is, more stitches need to be taken off. So here I'm just keep knitting and purling several rows to show you better how the curves look like. Okay, now I've knitted a couple of rows, and you can see the curve line is formed clearly here, and that's how the curves are done. Here it's very basic, so I'm just, since this is a beginner tutorial, I don't want to put too much information, jam too much information here. So this is basically how you achieve curves. Now you know. Great. Okay, let's keep on learning. Okay, now let's learn how to do technique number 9 and number 10. Number 9 is shoulder seam sloping, and number 10 is neckline shaping. So we're gonna learn these 2 techniques together. So in order to demonstrating better, I added more stitches. So I have more stitches to work on to show you how to shape the shoulder seam and the neckline. So basically you see this big curve here is because I added more stitches on each side. Basically when you reducing stitches, you form an inward curve, and when you add in stitches, you form an outward curve. Very straightforward, but it's kind of interesting. Next, here I'm demonstrating, I'm gonna create the slope for the shoulder seam, and in the meantime, I'm creating the neckline curve. So this is how it's done when you're knitting a sweater. So let's do the number 9, slope shaping. Okay, here is just me doing some calculation about how many stitches to leave for the shoulder seam and the neckline. Since I don't have a lot of stitches to work on here, it's just a demonstrating. There are many ways to shape in slope, but here as a beginner tutorial, I'm gonna introduce the most straightforward one, which is using the binding off stitch in stage to achieve the slope. So what does binding off in stages mean? So basically it's like you climb the staircase. First step, so as demonstrated here, I'm binding off 4 stitches. And then I keep knitting until I finish the row. So after I finish this row, I'm gonna turn the swatch to the other side, and I'm gonna start shaping the neckline. This is gonna be the neckline, and yeah, so I'm gonna shape the neckline because this is how the real knitting is done. When you're knitting a real sweater, you'll see how to do it. Now I'm gonna shape the neckline curve. Shaping the neckline curve is same as shaping the armhole curve. Here it's probably a little bit confusing for you to understand, but it's hard for you to understand, just to skip this step because I will have a more advanced tutorial about this part, and you will see because it's a little bit more regarding the pattern making. So just so you can see, I'm shaping the neckline same as I shaped the armhole. So I'm binding up 4 stitches, which is the first step of shaping a curved line, and I'm gonna keep purling this row. Now I've finished purling this row, and we turn to the other side, since this is the staircase coming where the staircase is coming up. So that's what I mean. So remember, that's the 4 stitches we bound off 2 rows ago, and now we're keep binding off. So it's like a staircase. Now we're binding off another 4 stitches, 3 or 4 stitches, depends on how many stitches, because this swatch is kind of small. I don't have enough stitches to work with. So I'm gonna keep binding off 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I'm binding off 3 because I don't have enough stitches to show you. So now you can see a slope has been achieved. It's just like a staircase. And here I'm gonna keep knitting. Okay, here's the keep knitting, and here's the tricky part. Because since I'm also shaping the neckline curve in the same time, so I need to reduce stitches here. So I'm gonna reduce 1 stitch by knitting these 2 stitches together. And to shape the neckline curve. Well, if this part is too difficult for you to understand, you can skip it, because what you need to learn now is how to shape the curve. How to shape the slope for the neck seam. But I think you'll understand until I finish the whole thing. As long as how to shape the neckline, curve, and the slope in the same time. I'm gonna introduce it in my next video when we're talking about the pattern making. So here, on the other side, I keep purling, and we're coming to the knit set again. So now actually you can already see the slope of the seam. So I'm gonna keep binding off. This is the third stage to bind off. So it's like the third staircase. And okay, now we are at the neckline again. Since I don't have enough stitch to work on, here I'm reducing another stitch around the neckline to form the neckline curve. But usually, yeah. So again, this part is probably hard for you to understand, a little bit confusing, but that's okay. Just to show you know, the neckline curve same as armhole curve, and for the shoulder seam, it's binding off in stages. Usually, it's 3 stages. Depends on how many stitches you have for your shoulder seam, and then you can decide how many stitches to bind off every time. Here, what I'm doing here is actually now I'm binding off in 4 stages. So this is a very sloped shoulder line. And now I'm finishing it. Finishing binding off. And that's the last one. Just like that. We have formed both the shoulder slope and the neckline. So hope it's easy for you to understand. Here, just ignore the part that's below. You'll see, of course, this is half, not the whole thing. This is half. So basically, the center at the left is the center of your neckline, the neckline and shoulder. So this is just demonstrating. I'm gonna show you the real sweater piece that I knitted. I'm gonna show you that, so you have a better understanding of that. So that is number 9 and number 10 achieved on the same time. And hope this is easy for you. Yeah, so this is how this mysterious swatch was formed. So basically, I packed 10 knitting techniques in this swatch, and it came out this way. Kind of interesting, right? Okay, here I want to add some real sweater knitting situation here. So this is the back piece of a sweater that I've been working on. You can see we have neckline, we have right armhole and left armhole. And this is the center back line. And the tricky part I was talking about is like usually when you reach the neckline, that's usually when you're gonna knit the shoulder slope too. So since this is a back piece, the shoulder slope is starting about the same time as the back neckline. So that's what I said. It's probably confusing for you guys because usually you knit these two together. So this is definitely something that's more advanced, but it's not hard at all. Next time when I knit a sweater, I'll record the whole process to show you how to do it. So stay tuned. And just like that, that is the tutorial for today. I hope you found it useful and easy to understand and follow. Please don't hesitate to leave your comments and questions down below. I would really love to improve my videos in the future for you to understand and follow. So if you found my video interesting, if you love my content, please like, subscribe, and share with your knitting friends. And until next time, keep knitting. Bye!